Hello, all. Thank you so much for your continued support of ministry. We are indeed grateful that you have partnered with us in ministry, partnered with us as we partner with God in the matters of His heart. We are continuing our study on Worth It, rebuilding self worth after, and we are looking at the word denial today. But before we go there, I wanted to thank those who came along with us in our study on Dress to Kill, that online study, that private online study. Thank you so much for supporting ministry. We are very grateful that you chose to support ministry in that way. Everyone who purchased a book, thank you very much. If you have not purchased a book, you can do so by going onto Amazon.com and searching for Dress to Kill, the workbook by Latanya Gibson. If you do so, simply send us an email and we'll set you up for future online studies, web-based studies that you can interact with other persons who are participating in the study as well as with me. I'll be there to answer questions and to support you as you go along the study. Those of you who were able to participate, if you don't mind going to Amazon and leaving a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very, very, very much. That being said, we're continuing our study on Worth It. There are some other projects that are coming down the pike, and we will keep you abreast of them as we are free to do so, but I'm very excited about all God is doing. But as we continue this study on Worth It, we're looking at the word denial. I have to tell you that I did initially write this some months ago. And it's interesting in my perspective that right now is the time that it's being released to you all. It seems befitting considering all of the things that are going on in our world and in our society. However, this was not written about that. It was written about how we deal with denial in our personal lives. So I hope that you can see both how it pertains to what's happening in our society, what's happening in our world today, as well as how it affects you personally and how you can draw from it and begin to rebuild self-worth after denial. And so let's dive into it. Denial can be seen in two forms. The first type of denial is living in an unacknowledged truth. And the second type of denial is being rejected. So let's talk about the first one, living in an unacknowledged truth. It is just as it says. When you're living in denial, you're living in an unacknowledged truth. You're not acknowledging the truth of the circumstances of your life. And many of us have been there, done that. But the problem is that we develop delusional views of life because we're living out this denial. We're in denial about a relationship. We're in denial about a friendship. We're in denial about a connection. We're in denial about whether or not or how someone accepts us or rejects us. The truth is contrary to what we want, and so therefore, since we don't want it, we won't believe it. And so that's how we end up going into denial. Seemingly, we appear to ignore the truth in hopes that maybe one day it'll become no longer true, no longer pertinent to us. What we actually want will become our truth. And the truth of the matter is that that's not how it typically works. What typically does happen when we live in denial is that we really do seem to prolong the inevitable. Seem to waste a lot of time getting to a decision that could have been made months, for some of us even years ago. And that form of denial, we are actually rejecting the truth. We're rejecting what we know to be true because we just don't like what it means to our lives. We don't like what it necessitates because it is true. The other type of denial is being rejected. If you're denied entry into a group, if you're denied entry into a family, if you're denied entry into school, you've basically been rejected. And that rejection hits hard. It hits hard because when families deny us, we have misconstrued thoughts about our value and our and who we are and our importance to a society, to a family, to those we hold dear. It hits at our self-esteem and it isolates us and it leaves us feeling like easy prey, if you will. But faithful as always, Peter does not leave us hanging. He leaves us with some real insight as to how to deal with both types of denial. If you go to Peter chapter 12, you find that Peter was rejected by the Jews, imprisoned by the Romans, and but came quite comfortable in his imprisonment. He's imprisoned. And if we look at chapter 12, verse 5, Acts chapter 12, verse 5, it says, Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him. If we're going to deal with denial, even though we may find ourselves imprisoned, we have to engage in unshackled prayer. You see, the issue with prayer is that it constantly puts us before God, and God constantly puts before us the truth. It's in We're incapable of denying what is true when we are operating in unshackled prayer. Yes, Peter was imprisoned, but the church constantly prayed for Peter. And for some of us, we have to do the same thing for friends and family members who we see are in an imprisoned state, who we see are in a state of denial where they're not accepting where they are and what God is trying to do in them. Also, those who seem to be imprisoned by a certain thought about who they are because they've experienced so much denial, because they've experienced so much rejection, they can become imprisoned by low self-esteem and internalize what everyone else seems to think about them. No matter what type of denial we're dealing with here, it's important that though the person may be in prison, that our prayers are unshackled and free, that we don't allow our perception of that person, that we don't allow our thoughts about what they're doing or what they're not doing to hinder how we pray for them. But we intercede for them and go in for them with unshackled prayer. So that's the first thing. If we're going to deal with denial, even though we may be, or someone we're connected to may be, or a family member may be imprisoned, our prayers for them have to be unshackled. It says, if we skip down to verse 7, it says, and behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in his prison. When our prayers go unshackled, miraculous things happen. It says that an angel came and shined light on the prison. A lot of times when we are imprisoned by our own issues or self-denial and self-value and self-worth, when we're imprisoned by our own thoughts, and someone is praying for us, or we simply intercede for ourselves and go to God on our own behalf, something happens. A light is shined on our circumstance. A light is shined on our situation. A light was shined on Peter's circumstance. A light was shined on his situation. In that moment, he could see that though the Jews were rejecting him, the Romans were doing the Jews' bidding. Sometimes there are people who are rejecting us, and we go through types of rejection and types of denial, not necessarily because of the person who's coming against us, but because another person or another group or another entity has something to lose or something to gain from our situation. And so a light gets shined into that moment. A light gets shined, and when a light is shined on our imprisonment, when a light is shined on why we are where we are, we can't help but acknowledge the truth. There's a bright light shining on it. And so you have to acknowledge the fact that, you know what, I am in this circumstance for this reason or that reason. When a light gets shined on our truth, and I think as I said before, as I'm thinking about conditions of the world today, a light has been shined, and we can no longer ignore what has been going on. It's interesting to me because if you continue to read this, if you read verse 6, rather, if you go back, you realize that Peter was asleep in the prison. He had gotten so comfortable in this state of being denied or in this state of being rejected, and therefore his rejection led him to imprisonment, that he was asleep. And a lot of us have gone through the same thing. We get so comfortable in our state of imprisonment that we don't expect or anticipate anything is going to change. And so therefore we get comfortable there. We fall asleep. And so when the light is shined on the circumstance, we've got to come to grips with the truth. Not only do we have to come to grips with the truth, it says that the angel smote Peter. He hit him. And sometimes the truth hits us like a ton of bricks, and it's uncomfortable and it's painful and it's difficult to deal with, but it wakes us from our slumber. And a lot of what we're dealing with right now is designed to wake us from our slumber, to hit us, to make us alert to what we've gone through, what we're going through, and help us to simply wake up. And if we don't heed the call, if we don't acknowledge the fact that this circumstance, this group of circumstances is designed to wake us up, then we'll miss the opportunity. What opportunity? It says that he raised him up and saying, "Arise up quickly," and his chains fell off of him. If we wake up and get up and begin to move toward our freedom, move toward the truth, move toward our exit, our chains fall off. Some of us have been shackled so long and imprisoned so long in rejection and in what happens as a result of rejection that our chains have become comfortable to us, comfortable enough for us to sleep in them, comfortable enough for us to recline in them. The moment we get up and walk toward our freedom, walk toward our purpose, walk toward our calling, walk toward what it is that God has gifted us to do, empowered us to do, and is provoking us to do in this season, when we walk toward it, our chains fall off. Yes, we all go through periods of denial and periods of rejection. But understand that if we allow our prayers to go unshackled, the truth of who we are, the truth that of what God really wants to do for us and why we went through this process all along will be revealed. Once that truth is revealed, yes, it might sting, it might hurt, but it's designed to wake us from our slumber and to get us moving in the direction of our freedom, moving in the direction of our deliverance. The moment we move in that direction, chains will fall off. The story goes on to say how Peter went into the village and knocked on the door, and a girl came to the door, and she was in such denial. She was praying unshackled for his deliverance, but was in such denial of the fact that deliverance could actually come, that she left him outside, astonished at the fact that he was there. The people inside said it must be his spirit. He's probably dead at this point, and his spirit has come to us. Again, in denial of the fact that God can actually do this thing. If we're going to pray for it, we need to at least, bare etch-a-sketch minimum, believe that he's capable of doing it. Believe that he's capable of setting us free. Believe that God is capable of changing our circumstance and making our situation better for us. We are accepted in him. He accepts us. So let's accept the fact that he accepts us and stop walking in denial of who we are. We have the power to cause change to take place in the earth. But it starts with us. It starts with our unshackled prayer. It starts with waking up from our slumber and moving toward the change we want to see. Again, I repeat, I wrote this probably 2 months ago, but I don't see a better time for it to be released in the earth. I pray you're in agreement with me and that you too will come out of denial, just as I am, and move forward in who God has called you to be. I love you. It's time to rebuild after denial. God bless you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.